Hi everyone and welcome back to RQ. Today is the very first episode of a series of discussions. It's going to be something that I'm going to incorporate into this channel called Pensive Discussion, where I look back at the books that I have read, different issues in literature, just generally topics of my interest or comments that you post and different things like that. So today's episode really is looking back at 1984. In my review, which I've put a link into the description below, I'm really going to explore some of the finer details of how the book is still ever relevant in the modern era and how hauntingly prophetic it was when George Orwell wrote it. So, just to remind you, the particular edition that I did read was this one, the Penguin Modern Classics version. Very nice book, and there are loads of different editions out there, but that's the one I've got. And I'm really going to go through a number of these different issues, and it's going to provoke, no doubt, a lot of discussion. There's no doubt that the book is profound, as you'll see in my video review. And it's got such a hauntingly relevant application to our modern society. It's uncanny, to be honest. And do beware of minor spoilers as I go through, but I've got these key points that I think are worth talking about. As you'll notice in the book, Oceania, which is where Winston Smith lives, is a superstate, a supercontinent, so the world's been divided into these blocks, if you will, sort of like NATO and the Warsaw Pact or Eastern Bloc, and they're sort of superstates. And Winston lives in Airstrip 1, which is London. And the key factor, the first point I'd like to raise in this video, is that Oceania is in a state of perennial war with one superstate or another, and this is usually Eurasia or East Asia. But the fact is, no one really remembers which, and it changes at the flip of a coin. And I think that this is comparable in some aspects to ISIS, Al-Qaeda, any of these other Islamist groups. It's easy to forget who we're actually at war with. We always seem to need an enemy. When I say we, I mean the West, so the UK and the USA, and other allies. So in this new war on terror in the 21st century, we've always got to have an enemy. And I get to think about my life. I'm in my mid-20s. And the UK has been at war pretty much my entire life. We always seem to need a foe. And just to go through a few of those conflicts, I was born in '88. So you've got the Troubles in Northern Ireland, 1969 to the mid-1990s. Some would argue it's still gone on for longer than that. The Gulf War 1, 91 to 92, Bosnian War, 92 to 96, Operation Desert Fox, 1998, Kosovo War in 99, Sierra Leone, 2000, War on Terror, 2001 to 2007, Afghan War, 2001 to 2014, Iraq War, 2003 to 2009, Libya, 2011, and now ISIS, 2014 to present. Uncanny. We always need an enemy. And I know it's not strictly mirroring the book, but you get my point. Need to refresh. So my second point. Emmanuel Goldstein. Is he real or a party manufactured rumour? Now, the book is ambiguous, in my opinion, and you can make your own mind up when you get around to reading it, or if you've read it already. I'd be keen to hear from you. Is he a figment that's being created by the party to sort of weed out people that dissent? It's difficult to say, and in my opinion, I'm leaning towards the fact that he's conjured, he's made up. And how does that relate to our world at the moment? It's not unknown for governments to make up threats. For example, Saddam Hussein, they made up about him having WMDs as far as we can tell. Other example, that the fear that surrounded communism in the 50s with the McCarthy witch hunts. The scaremongering that goes on about terrorism now. It's also commonplace for us to smear people, and it's clear in the book that obviously there's a massive propaganda campaign geared against Emmanuel Goldstein, who seems to stand up for very honourable principles, such as liberty and freedom. And you'll remember, even recently with the whole Edward Snowden case, he was standing up for the similar principles, but he was smeared as well. People calling him a traitor, mainly the media, and we'll get onto that in a minute. Martin Luther King Jr. as well was smeared. And they're just some that come to mind. So, is he real or a partly manufactured rumour? I think you can draw aspects of that out to the current world that we live in. Doublespeak. Although this isn't mentioned explicitly in the book, there's doublethink. And doublespeak is sort of morphed into its own concept. So we've got the Ministry of Truth, read lies, and the Ministry of Love, which is the Ministry of Torture. There are plenty of examples of doublespeak in the modern era, and you see them all the time. So we've got the Department of Defense in the United States. When does it ever defend itself? Has Russia or the Soviet Union ever invaded in a war of aggression the United States, and they've had to defend their borders and defend their country? No, not in the real world. In Call of Duty, yeah. The Patriot Act enforces spying on citizens, whereas you get true patriots such as Snowden and Chelsea Manning, formerly Bradley Manning, they get persecuted. That dichotomy is just mind-boggling. The next concept I'd like to talk about is indefinite detention in the Ministry of Truth, where people are made into unpersons, basically vanish from thin air. And again, the USA, this is true particularly of the USA, but you could talk about this in terms of the Soviet Union, the purges, and people just disappeared and had show trials and everything else. But the USA in the modern era, Guantanamo Bay and so on, people incarcerated without due process, disappear, people have been killed there, thrown in, forgotten about, abandoned, not even trialed or anything of that nature. Remember not so long ago, the CIA torture program? Ministry of Love. It's exactly there, with the weird practices that went on there. The terrible things that were done, and you just have to check the recent headlines that, everyone's forgotten about it now, but it happened. It evokes themes from the book. Now, this is one of my key topics from 1984 that I do think has particular relevance and importance to the modern era. Now, the party, the evil party that's innumerable in scope and power, they are, although they have the thought police as a key threat, that's, I think the fear attributed in the book to the thought police is considerably greater than the actual threat posed, in terms of how much control they pose for the party. I think that the party relies most on the brainwashed populace, the lobotomized, brainwashed public, and the indoctrinated youth. Let's not forget that. They indoctrinate the young, so they don't know any better. The population at the moment in modern society is currently kept dumb, in my view, with reality TV, celebrity culture, and just drivel. Religion's also used to keep people, shall I say, not stupid, but ignorant. and less inquisitive is the key point I'm trying to make. So less inquisitive about the world, and this is done in a passive manner. And it's uncommon for people to have true political awareness in the modern era. It's always, Bill Hicks had the famous sketch where he's saying there's one guy controlling two puppets. One's a Democrat, one's a Republican. Look, he's right there, he's got two puppets. Really think you should check that out. Particularly in the US, science education takes a lot of heat. Just have to look at the Cosmos series with Neil deGrasse Tyson. Richard Dawkins gets a lot of heat, Sam Harris especially. People don't want to hear about these ideas. People like Lawrence Krauss and people like ignorant of evolution and science. Things like that. The information is out there, but it's discouraged in a passive fashion. And in my experience, this is obviously a book review channel and book discussion channel, and it's a hobby of mine. People are proud, and I've seen this in my own life. Some people are proud of not reading books, and they wear it as a badge of honour. And I think that's a sad, sad thing. George Carlin, in his famous piece, said that the government wants people just smart enough to be able to do the paperwork, but dumb enough not to realise that they're getting done in, basically. He used more scathing language. The next theme is Winston in the Ministry of Truth, as I said, Ministry of Lies, rewrites history and revises the past. And there are elements of this in recent memory. So the modern media would have us believe that we were never friends with Saddam Hussein, when we obviously were. There's a picture of Donald Rumsfeld shaking his hand. Gaddafi, we were never allies with Gaddafi, he was a tyrant. Bashar al-Assad, the murderer. Al-Qaeda, who the Americans supported sending them Stinger missiles during the war with Afghanistan, in the Soviet Union. Supported them, and now it's come back to, it's called Blowback. It's come back to blow back in their face. Bin Laden had links, the Bin Laden family had links with the Bush family. So all of these things that happened, historical things that happened that are true, have been glossed over and swept under the carpet, akin to the Ministry of Truth. And that's just poignant. Another key point that really hit home to me in the book is the fact that where Winston lives, in the Victoria Flats, they're falling apart. The flats themselves are falling to pieces and they're in disrepair. And so many people live in squalor. And yet the media headlines that are put out by the propaganda from the party always says that the economy is always getting better and better, but no one's standard of living seems to go any higher. And you'll remember from January this year that half of the world's wealth is currently held by the top 1%. That was the Oxfam report from last month. So, the growing economy in the book isn't mirrored with the living conditions of the populace. And you look around the world and look at how there's so much squalor and poverty, the world we live in. It's the imbalance is just almost sickening. And you look, especially when you look at the money that's ploughed into military defence. You look at the US defence budget, and it's bigger than something like the next 25 countries combined, of which 24 are their allies. Unbelievable. And Martin Luther King had it absolutely straight when he said that a nation that continues year after year to spend more on military defence than on programmes of social uplift is approaching spiritual doom. That is real. Just genius quote. And my last point, Winston's awareness of the solace and privacy afforded by Mr. Charrington's shop, albeit short-lived. The freedom of being away from the telescreens and the songs and the brainwashing, almost like being unplugged from the matrix, as it were. And you can get a sense of this when you go outdoors, when you go hiking or go camping, or just take yourself away from 21st century society. And you don't take your phone with you. Unplug. No TV, no cameras, and no garbage. No media saturation. You're beautifully excluded from the constant sensory bombardment. And this, to me, is how Winston must have felt. That really hit home with me when I was reading the book. So there are just a few things that I felt when reading this book, and I thought I would really expand on in this discussion video. I'd be really keen if you've got your own comparisons and contrasts from the book, if you've read it. And if not, you should go away and read it and really engage with it, because I think it's just amazing, the sort of prophetic symbolism the book has become known for. I think it's a great achievement that Orwell did and was able to write. So again, if you've not checked out my review of the book initially, do go and check it out. I hope you enjoyed this more laid-back discussion video, and I'm going to make it a key theme with my channel. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Post your comments down below, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for listening and watching.